Welcome, mods, greasers, and alien fences, to episode 363 of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 22nd of July, 2020, and featuring Big Finish's Susan's War, the Shoreditch Intervention, written by Alan Barnes and starring Carol Ann Ford as Susan Campbell and Paul McGann as the Doctor. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and I'm hoping that when we roll for August's catastrophe, that we don't have global warming anymore. With me are Randy Ronson McCulloch
It is going to be a short podcast tonight.
and Mad Matt Winchell.
The Orky Boys.
As usual, for audio drama podcast, Thomas Fireheart will not be joining us, and Tim the Enchanter is out dealing with some medical challenges for today. Hopefully, nothing long lasting.
Mm-hmm.
And so he will not be giving his thoughts on this week's episode. He is resting up.
Yeah, he needs it. He's technically still in one of the trouble areas, I believe. New York is still troubled. Yes.
It was
It
okay.
it
and
was
then it got
good,
worse.
and then it got exactly.
Yeah.
It was one of the areas where it was supposedly under control, but then everybody went outside it at once.
Yeah, everyone went out all at once without any restrictions, even though you're told restrictions.
Human beings are stupid. They think, oh, things have lightened up. I'll just go out like it's normal.
Right. And the best analogy I've seen for that is, jumping out of a plane, getting most of the way down and saying, oh, I'm not dropping too fast. It's time to put my parachute away.
My terminology will be just the word lemmings.
Yep. I don't have a lot of faith in humanity. 5 years of tech support has pretty much just me on the average intelligence of a human being, including people that are so-called educational people, because I worked at a health tech support in a university. And
Yep.
2 years in the service industry by yourself on a third shift job.
Hell, one of the things that's made me shake my head working in management with other managers for years is the inability of so many allegedly problem solver people to unplug something and plug it back in again.
You see, I don't know how you managed to work in management for that long and not get the mandatory lobotomy. I'm serious. I knew people that worked, on the platform, and they were smart people. They got promoted to management, and they immediately went dumb.
I will say, when I was working 60-hour weeks, I was pretty dumb. Sleep deprivation will do that to you.
Well, there's the difference between sleep tired dumb and I like mittens dumb. The I like mittens part usually tends to lead to something just escaped that man's skull.
Yeah, and it's not just momentary stupid; it's constant stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this means that they were just promoted above their station, or if they were always secretly hiding the dumb.
And now that they're up there, they can't hide it anymore.
Yeah. But suddenly these people that were tended to be normal people when I worked with them, now that they're above me, just, they make all the wrong decisions.
Well, that depends. And maybe it was a forced decision that they had no say in too, because how some companies run.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And I worked for a university, so, politics.
For example, the quick service restaurant chain that I'm in, the official stance is that it's highly recommended for none of our locations to have the dining room open yet. Meanwhile, every single franchisee in the country is like dollar signs, open the dining room.
Yeah, I hope you'll get what's coming to you. It's called karma.
No, with the minimum wage workers will get what's coming to them.
Yeah. You see, the upper rule is the people making these decisions don't care about the people at the bottom of the food chain. All they
Well,
care about
I
is
suppose it depends upon
Yeah.
the area you live in, though, too.
The person who works in the office and never steps foot into the restaurant faces no risk by opening the dining room.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those things that, once upon a time, people cared about the people working under them, but somewhere along the way, we've kind of forgotten that little rule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I will say that the mom and pa restaurant here in town here has opened up everything. Because, believe you me, their mom and pa, they were risking going completely under.
Yeah, they probably didn't have a drive-through to
No,
follow.
they don't. And the best
And
they
I
could,
have
the best they could
I have a
manage
little
for a
more.
couple months there is that you can maybe order from them ahead of time, and you can pick
That's
it up.
I have a little more sympathy for businesses like that because yeah, that's a rock and a hard place.
Mhm.
But even then, like at least in my area, most of them just kind of like once they were allowed to, opened up a few tables in the parking lot, which is a lot safer than the dining room.
Yeah, I don't think they have any extra tables like that, but they have
Mhm.
at least been able. I've actually gone there once now, and they at least try to keep people spread out. Matter of fact, they love people to pick their own seats, and they usually try to pick a booth or two away from everybody else
Mhm.
until it gets busy. In which case, by the time it gets busy, you're hopefully already heading out the door anyway.
Mhm.
So, on that note, I was picking up some medication the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards we decided to go through the local Taco Bell. Well, a building down from the Taco Bell is one of our local Mexican restaurants. And I noticed all these signs out right in front of the drive-through reading to them, "We're open, come on in."
I kind of love that you get the choice. Do I want real Mexican today or do I want fake Mexican today?
No, that is not the choice.
Oh,
I know that restaurant. That is not the choice.
aha.
I've had the enchiladas at that restaurant, and the enchilada sauce has the taste of Campbell's.
See,
Oof.
those types of businesses do not last in Danbury. We have way too high of an immigrant population to
Well, the
even.
thing is, their guacamole and chips are good, and their drinks are good. So
Gotcha.
people will go there and drink and eat chips, and
So,
some of their
so it's a
other food is
Mexican
good.
bar essentially.
Yeah.
It's a better bar than a restaurant.
Now the one on the east side, because there's a restaurant on each side. That one has good food. I've eaten there, so it's whatever chef is working at that west side one is just taking the piss.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, and nobody eats the enchiladas, so I'm just going to use Campbell's tomato paste as the enchilada sauce. And I'm like, no. Yeah. I'm sorry, I know my stuff, and I would rather eat. There's another restaurant. One I took Matt to when I introduced Matt to Mexican food. I'd rather eat there than I would.
Oh yeah, I'd
Oh
willingly
yeah,
go there.
I should probably look up what the Mexican cuisine in Ohio is like. It might be a good idea for me to get my fill during my week off before
It's
moving
hard to
down.
it's hard to find good Mexican cuisine. Really in the Midwest, there's
I
places
I've
that
heard,
have higher
I've heard,
taxes.
yeah, I've heard that there are certain cities that have a much higher immigrant population than East Coasters would suspect, but I
Mhm.
don't know necessarily if any of them are near where I'm.
Madison has a slightly higher than usual, and we have a lot of mediocre Mexican restaurants and only one or two good ones. Whereas you go to like Cali, and there's like hundreds of Mexican restaurants, and I would say probably about 60 to 70% of them are good. But that's right by the border, so
I could go on a walking tour. I could go on a immigrant owned restaurants around here, so that's what I'm used to.
I'm still sad that you're not coming up to Madison.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I could have taken you on a restaurant tour of the city.
Right.
Trust me.
Right.
Although not in this condition.
Yeah. Who does? Yeah, true. But I mean, I would have been there. But it seems anybody in UW Madison that does similar work to me does it on the clinical side, and I'm doing more of the social experimental side. So we wouldn't
Mhm.
have it wouldn't have been a match.
Yeah, I know. I'm just sad regardless.
Right.
All right, so let's move on to tonight's show.
Yep.
We got a couple of birthdays. Only one piece of news, and that's a Big
Right.
Finish announcement. Then we've got some geek talk, both from Matt and you. And then you've got a review of Shame, and then we're going
Yep.
into our summary, our review order.
I'm
Or
almost
our summary,
caught up.
our review, our final thoughts, our ratings. And it is just us three tonight.
Yep.
The original
We're-
OG
We're
members.
going old school.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been just us in a long time.
Right.
Those
Not
of us
since
that have been here through it all.
not since Randy was doing a podcast in what was it, a superheated bathroom or something, or closet.
There's several places that could have been, but yeah, where I was upstairs, I think, in the bathroom at my former roommate Chris's, trying not to wake him up while I was doing my podcast. And that had no AC, and I would come out of there and immediately have to take a shower. Because it was so damn hot. Anyway. So birthdays. We have two birthdays, both of them today.
Yep.
The first one is Bonnie Langford, who played Mel from 1986 to 1987. She turned 56. And then we have Adrian Hill, one of the questionable companions from the first Doctor era.
A Mayfly companion.
She played Katarina in 1965's. Where do they pick her up? Was it the Romans or the Crusades?
No. Was it the? I think it might have been the Mythmakers.
The Mythmakers.
Was that?
Was Mythmaker sounds about right.
Yeah.
And then they lost her in the Dalek Master Plan.
Yep. Literally died in the vortex of space in the next episode.
Yeah, also has one of the things to be one of the companions that have actually died.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, it must have been the Mythmakers. Okay, yep. Anyway, she would have been 83, but died in 1997 at 60.
Mm.
So happy birthday, Bonnie, and a posthumous happy birthday to Adrienne. And then, as I said, the only piece of news we have is a Big Finish release that is out. And that is Torchwood, Save Our Souls, which is featuring Queen Victoria, I think voiced by the person that played her in the 2006 episode Tooth and Claw.
I know you've kept a lot better track of the news since I was in and out a lot over the fall. Is this her first appearance in a Torchwood audio, do you know?
It might be her second. I think they might have had one other flashback Torchwood. Either that, or
I get the feeling she might have done it before, but I'm not sure.
Either that, or they announced it a year ago, and this is finally out. But
one or the two, yeah.
I could see her having a supporting role in the lives of Captain Jack or something as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, remember, she's technically the founder of Torchwood, so
yeah,
right.
So technically, he has ties all the way back to her.
Yeah,
already.
So that is all of our news. It has been a quiet week, as usual, because, of course, everybody is hiding from the virus still, and will probably continue to do so for the foreseeable future.
As long as they got sense in their heads.
Especially since I think the UK has marginally more sense than the US, but only marginally.
Well,
only marginally.
They're doing slightly better than we are, yes.
Yeah. They haven't had a big second explosion, at least not yet.
No, they have had an upward spike.
They have had an upward spike, but it wasn't an explosion.
Right. They are looking at us and going, "Stupid Americans. Can't
And
keep
of,
bloody control of your bloody virus," you know.
and of course, apparently Bojo had a statement where he was like, "Oh well, to paraphrase, essentially, well, compared to what COVID-19 did, Brexit won't actually be all that bad."
Oh God. I like you calling him Bojo, because for me now he's Bojo the Clown. Thank you.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh,
Well, it's all
which
The
clown world
amount
to
of,
me.
it's the amount of dignity that he deserves.
yeah, which still is more than what our president deserves.
Yep. I still usually refer to him as fuckface fun clown stick in writing.
Oh,
Wow.
Thank you, Jon Stewart.
oh, yeah. So moving on
Mm-hmm.
to Geek Talk. The first
Yep.
thing we have is a movie which I've actually
Yep.
seen before, and
Okay.
that is, I take it this is the Marvel animated Planet Hulk.
Yes. Yeah, so I was sitting at home looking for some sort of movie I could watch on Xfinity and Demand the other day. I was like, oh, you know what? I don't usually watch a lot of the animated movies, but let me give it a try. I had heard of the Planet Hulk storyline, but I had never actually read it. And as watching it, I realized that I was more familiar with it than I expected because more of it had been adapted into Thor Ragnarok than I
Oh
had
yeah, oh
thought.
yeah, that was as close as we were
Mhm.
ever going to get to a live
Yeah.
action Planet Hulk.
I
Yeah.
do kind of feel bad because I feel like the start of Planet Hulk makes a lot more sense than whatever transition from Age of Ultron to Ragnarok happened. They waved their hands and he appeared on a different planet.
hmm
Uh,
He took
so I
off. He took off in one of
Mhm.
the Avengers crafts and
Mhm.
didn't know. Yeah, this one was actually a plot by
Yes, by the Illuminati.
which in the Marvel universe is basically just the biggest brains in the Marvel universe,
Yeah,
including
but
Xavier, Stephen Strange, Tony
Mhm.
Stark.
And I do feel like that sets up a conflict that's interesting enough that I wish we had seen it in the MCU because by the nature of the Avengers storyline, that conflict would not fit.
The thing is, we could have had it now. The reason that they couldn't do it is that a lot of those key players in the Marvel universe
Mhm.
weren't there.
Well, I mean, but I mean, is like I'm saying, as of now, they could not because they're just on too good terms. Banner has too much control over the Hulk.
Uh-huh.
Like even in the beginning, even in the first Avengers movie, they established that he had so much control over the Hulk that it would be really weird. Like they would have had to do something to make him backtrack
Yeah, and
for this to be a viable
which has happened
storyline.
in the comics, by the way,
Yes,
where
it
he has
has.
had
Fair,
gone to
fair.
like almost complete control of the
Um,
Hulk, and
for
then
that
2 years later,
ma-
it's slipping. Yeah.
For that matter, I will mention something that surprised me. So I've never been a huge I've never followed like Hulk storylines to the point of knowing what's in what chronological order. But when I read World War Hulk, I had always assumed that the reason Hulk spoke in complete sentences had something to do with the Professor Hulk, which MCU fans will know from Endgame. But based on the Planet Hulk animated movie, at least, it just seems that by being Savage Hulk for so long without reverting back to Banner, he eventually learned to speak like a normal person.
Kind of,
Yeah,
So
sort of.
that surprised me a little. Um,
Hmm.
a little bit of that, and a little bit of just maybe absorbing a little bit of Banner, anyways, from just being out and awake long
so
enough.
so digging into the story a bit though, I feel like this suffers, and I don't know if the comic version was the same. But I feel like the fact that it doesn't have the Hulk is not a very social character. He doesn't banter much. And there's no real equal co-star that interacts with, that is constantly on
There's no Rick Jones.
right. So as a result, the movie just feels like it's kind of coasting along without like you're really never in a main character's head in the same way that you are in most movies. And in a comic, you can do captions and thought bubbles depending on what decade.
That sounds. Did we lose? I think we did. Just a moment.
By any stretch of the imagination. So I do feel like that kind of made it a little less entertaining than it could have been.
Well,
I
yeah,
also
That
I
does
can tell.
honestly sound like a writer's issue.
Yeah, it
yeah,
does.
I think there are
because
ways around it, but I think that I don't get the impression this is definitely by no means had the budget of Into the Spider-Verse. I feel like this was more
No, these were like direct-to-video animated movies. A lot of them. Did it lock up again already? No. Yep.
show for kids to watch
um,
after school or something
it
like that.
was
But this one
it
happens to be
was
adapting a
a
comic
bulk
art.
video release, the same as the
Mhm.
DC animated stuff that comes out.
A lot of these were all like direct-to-video stuff. A
Yeah,
lot of these animated Marvel movies.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and
This
So
was
they
never
didn't throw a lot of time
theatrically
or budget
released,
into
and it
them.
was like Into the Spider-Verse had a theatrical release, so it had a
Right.
theatrical budget.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah, true. I've seen some of the DC ones, and obviously, like the DCAU was was a huge thing with Batman, TAS, Justice League, and everything else, which
Mhm.
has kind of continued in the movies. This I feel was not anchored as strongly and was not quite as high quality.
Mm.
Um, have you read the comic version of this or no?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I've
I
read
have not read the comic version, but I have seen bits that were affected by it.
I've read the comic version of both this and World War Hulk,
Mhm.
and I've
I
read
re-
I've
I
read
read the comic of
interviews.
World War Hulk. Mhm.
I've read the behind the scenes of what they were thinking,
Mhm.
and their whole concept was let's basically do a Savage sort of Conan with the Hulk.
Right. And that's the thing, the word savage is thrown around a lot in describing this. And
Mhm.
like other than like it being in a coliseum, I never felt like this wasn't as extreme as the storyline had been built up to be. And I'm wondering if the comic was similar or if it was very different in
This
tone,
this was
and visual presentation.
toned down a bit because it was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was toned
I
down, and
I I noticed they got rid of red blood.
Yep.
yeah, they wouldn't have flinched away back then, at least in the comics.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally,
Because,
Hulk.
this
Literally,
was
Hulk
after
pulled a
the.
Conan where he literally took over an entire planet.
Yeah.
You don't do that without blood.
This was after
Well,
Marvel.
there's blood, but there's green blood. And I was like, Hulk never bled green in any comic I've ever read.
Nope. Wrong.
This was after Marvel had basically kissed the comic code goodbye. So.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
shit. World War Hulk was one of like the most destructive comic stories I've seen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So, like,
actually,
seeing-
it was World War Hulk
yeah.
that I saw
I was
most of the
hoping
effects
they
out
were
of,
going
but
to
yeah.
make a movie that I was kind of hoping they'd make a sequel to this with the World War Hulk, but they never did.
Right. Yeah, I was trying to find if there was a sequel to it.
Because I would have loved to have seen that.
I don't think there was a sequel anime movie that I'm aware of.
For those of you that don't know, World War Hulk is the fact that yes, he basically ends Planet Hulk as the ruler of this planet. Only somebody sabotages his ship and his wife, which he had taken on this planet, is killed. And
Which that seemed to kind of just be shoved into the final scene, at least in the movie version. I don't know if it was better done in the comic, but that was just out of nowhere.
But and he thinks that he was basically set up to self-destruct by one of these Illuminati guys. So he gets his ship rebuilt, returns to Earth in a rampage, and basically just starts beating the hell out of every major Marvel character.
Yep.
I know. I remember him kicking the shit out of Juggernaut.
I actually don't think I've ever seen the ending of that.
And neither have I. I've just seen the part where it affected my storyline in Ghost Rider, to which the bit I got to see was Ghost Rider tried to fight him because he beat him before, looked into his soul, and then went, "No, you're right," and started joining Hulk.
Yeah, everybody that came up with him, I can't remember how it ended. I think he. I think he.
I know it
think he-
ended with being stripped of the Hulk.
I think he found out that no, it wasn't these guys. That one of the guys that came with him had actually set it up, so he turned on him.
But
And
I
then,
know that the following arc starts with Banner no longer having the Hulk. He no longer can transform. So there's something happens there. But that's I think
But that
tangenting
happens a
little
lot,
bit.
where he loses the ability to turn to Hulk and then gets it back again
Yeah.
eventually.
But yeah, just watching him beat the snot out of people like Mr. Fantastic and Iron Man, because Iron Man, of course, has like a ton of anti-Hulk
Right.
shit. None of
He
it works.
destroys the Avengers, the X-Men, everything. But as Planet Hulk as a movie, I would say it's okay. And it's definitely a version you'd be able to show your kids. But it's definitely does not. It's definitely not one of my favorite comic movies. Kind of in the mediocre 3 out of 5 range if I were to rate it. It's okay, but I'm not like something I would be like, oh yeah, you got to go out and see it.
All right, so that's takes us to Matt then.
All right,
Yep.
I'm going to talk very
Warhammer.
quickly about Warhammer Vermintide. So this is,
Now to clarify,
I was about to say, to specify, this is the first game.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
There's
clarify.
2 of them. I have played all of the DLC material for the first game because as long as someone else is hosting, they can run all the DLC for you. So with that being said, I have experienced it all. I enjoyed what was going on quite a bit. Essentially, the basic setup for Vermintide is that this is the end times for the fantasy Warhammer franchise. Everything's going to hell. The gods of chaos have decided that they don't even care who wins. They just want to fight until someone's on top. And basically the mortal plane is their battleground. They don't even care if any mortals are left by the time they're done. To this, the main villains of this piece are the Skaven, the humanoid rat people. They are believed to be small number until this event happens, in which case they come up in swarms of unbelievable numbers, which is something that apparently a certain sects of elves and dwarves have been afraid of for many centuries and have been doing their best to quell them back. Apparently, it didn't work. So you basically pick up with one of 5 characters. You can interchangeably play them between levels. You have a witch hunter, a sorceress, a elf, a dwarf, and the final one was a captain of the guard, essentially. All of them have varying different types of melee and ranged weapons, although the sorceress is probably the first one that has a ranged ability that can rapid fire without needing ammo, but if done too quickly can cause damage to the character itself, as she is a fire sorceress and if she uses too much mana too quickly, she'll burn. Long story short, you are caught inside of a city and are trying to push back the invasion.
Matt?
Hmm?
We lost you for about 15-20 seconds there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been like the second time then, at least tonight. As far as I'm aware, the stream still should have heard me as long as it wasn't too long or too harsh.
Okay.
Anyway, long story short, you are one of these 5 character classes trapped inside of the city, and you are trying to beat back the Skaven waves as you also try to secure the safety of any civilians as well as yourselves. The end of the story does leave on a cliffhanger, but I'm not going to tell you all the details, just that I have played it, and that's a thing that happened, and so obviously sets up number 2. Playing this with a full group was really fun. There's only I want to say 2 or 3 levels where they got really annoying, And funny enough, we tried those levels a second time and had zero issue. And it's like, what happened? Did somebody's gear upgrade? I don't know. Oh well, we managed to beat it this time. Moving on. But I will say that the number one issue I have with this game is that it's very obvious that the developers sadly abandoned this as they're nearing end of completion for putting this game together, and they very quickly went on to the sequel, which has all the bells and whistles that they were planning to eventually put into this game. To that, they've also even added DLC that includes levels from this game. At least a majority of them, if not all of them, from what I've been hearing. I'm not sure on that detail, though. But for what it is, the first Vermintide is a very fun game, but I would still suggest that maybe if you're trying to decide between the two, just skip ahead to 2 because it's about the same price and you can still get old levels.
Are you done?
Yep.
Okay, it was kind of hard to tell you because you kept cutting in and out. So
I don't know. It's here. Let me just restart Discord because it's probably Discord. I've been noticing that actually it seems to be Discord that's been messing up lately. Be right back. And say that as it's crashing. Discord, I'm going to kill you.
I kill you.
If it's not one thing, it's the other.
Discord, yeah, seriously. Okay, as I was trying to say, I'm going to end Discord really quick because that seems to be the issue lately. Be right back. All right.
Okay. So
yeah, sorry about that, but yeah, I've been noticing the last couple of times it's lagged like that. It's only Discord that suddenly just stops working. So I'm not sure what's up with that.
anyway, going back to the review of Shame.
Right, review of Shame.
Yes, review of Shame, the Abominable Snowmen. And yeah, so this is the first appearance of the Abominable Snowmen, preceding the Web of Fear.
I mean the Yeti.
Yeah, the Yeti being another name of them. Yes.
Well, that's what they're referred to as for the rest of the time, but okay.
But yeah, I really liked this one. And I've been debating how high a rating I can give a largely telesnap story. But this seems to be the sort of story that six-parters are best made for. It's pretty complex, more complex than most modern Who stories, more complex than you can fit in a 40-minute or in an hour story. And there's a good amount of characters, but you don't necessarily need to keep track of all of them. It definitely there's definitely more to the Great Intelligence than I had realized from the 3 stories we had seen with him. And yeah, I guess I should have more specifics. But yeah, so okay, so
I will say that as deep as the story is, at least there isn't too much action that it feels like it's all being robbed away through by the stills,
right.
which does help.
Hmm. Although I guess for one of them, I thought I was viewing a telesnap, and I accidentally clicked on one of the episodes that somebody had tried to animate, and there was some really weird action there. But I don't think anything would have been hugely lost with the telesnaps from that episode. There were also some mistakes in the animation, which made it a little trippy. But I'm keeping that separate from my actual analysis of the episode because that's clearly
Yeah.
not what the BBC intended. Um, so what I like the most is I guess just like how deep the conspiracy is, like how you have to like peel back layer by layer to figure out what's going on, how it isn't even, and that's part of what I mentioned about it being too complex for a shorter story, where it's not it's first you find out that there's not even just the leader, but there's the leader who's working with this old man who is old enough to have known the doctor, but that old man also using his psychic powers is too strong of a term, but I'm not coming up with a better one off the top of my head. Encountered the great intelligence and everything else going on. So I found it really cool to just keep unveiling more and more of the plot. Um, what I disliked is that just several of the names were similar, and it was making me have a lot of trouble keeping track of things. Partially because I always hate when a character is referred to by their title, like half of the story, and then by their name, the other half of the story. So especially in telesnaps, it takes a little longer to put the connection. Oh, this character is actually the same person that they're talking about here. It's a little bit easier in an in-person story, but even then, I'm just like, can you be a little more consistent in what you refer to them by, or at least use their title and name together so that you can see that. Um, I don't know if I had favorite and least favorite scenes. I definitely didn't write any down. Just with it being a long enough story that I was just focused on getting through it and forming general impressions since it was a review of Shame. Um, so yeah, I guess I will. I mean, there's definitely the challenges brought about by the telesnaps are probably the worst thing about it. So I think I will give this rating a 4.0, with the expectation that if they ever either fully recover or animate the episode, it would be probably bumped up to a 5.
And that is a lot higher than the rest of us gave it. Well, it's a good half step higher. And that bumps it up from a 3.2 to a 3.4. Which will move it. Oops, wrong sheet. Let's see. It was at 275. It will move up to 256. All right. So that's everything prior to the summary.
Yep.
And I believe the summary is me.
Yep.
All right.
So.
Stopwatch ready whenever you are.
Yeah, hang on one moment. Let me grab a sip of something before I start, because God knows I'll get tongue-tied. Fruit punch. All right.
Alrighty. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so we start this episode with Susan's TARDIS being diverted by somebody who claims not to be a member of the Celestial Intervention Agency, and offers Susan a chance to go back to 1963 to prevent the Time War from even starting by getting hold of a device the Doctor has, which we, people that have watched Doctor Who, would know to be the Hand of Omega, though it is never mentioned by name, simply called the device. After she's given a time ring and is left to do this, it's revealed that this person doesn't work for the Celestial Intervention Agency and is in fact an agent of the Daleks, who are basically following her trace to try to intercept the machine themselves. Susan appears in 1963, where she is almost immediately nearly run over by an idiot on a scooter, and manages to stop another one, accidentally causing it to have a little accident and destroying it. She apologizes, but has to vacate because the cops that were chasing the two on scooters soon show up. She then shows up at a diner where the other scooter rider just happens to work at by some coincidence. They are both members of, they're both mods, for those of you that know what that means. Kind of the intermediary between hipsters and hippies, if you know the early 60s.
I did not. I had to look them up after listening to this.
Yeah, it was. I knew them. Anybody that's bleh, forget that. I'm on the clock.
Yep.
She quickly finds out when she is and discovers she's a little late from when she wanted to be, but also knows she has to get across town. One of the people there has been Dalek modded, shall we say, and is basically convincing her to borrow somebody else's scooter. Unfortunately, Alex, one of the girls there, takes his place in basically stealing the scooter with Susan, and they're off to go to basically the Coal Hill area, Shoreditch. On the way, they are pursued by a couple of greasers, basically, the greaser type, the 50s leather jackets, motorcycle group, gang members, and who they managed to lose, tracing everything back to the good old scrapyard, where they briefly see the first doctor and realize that he's already unloaded the item. Susan attempts to trace it back and discovers a pawn shop run by, let's just call him a colorful individual, who she manages to convince that she's picking it up for him, that he's changed his mind, but he wants something in return, and what he wants is Susan's time ring. Originally, she says no, but soon gives it to him, when he takes it in the back to confer with his partner, who turns out to be the doctor, the 8th doctor to be precise, who claims to have been there because Susan had sent him an SOS. And because that she has actually been duped to be there by the Daleks. This is soon proven true because the guy that was under Dalek control back at the diner soon shows up and basically threatens them. The doctor then manages to shut down his control frequency and he passes out. They basically put him to sleep, have his partner take Alex to take her back home, while they return to the doctor's TARDIS, and Susan sends the SOS to herself. Unfortunately, Alex and the guy are then taken prisoner by the greasers, who also turn out to be under Dalek control, but from the renegade Dalek faction, for those of us that remember Remembrance of the Daleks. They've detected the energy spike and are basically trying to figure out what they are. The doctor's partner is allowed to warn the doctor, but Susan comes out, deals with them, tries to convince them that she is basically a rogue time traveler criminal out to basically try to pawn off some diamonds and make some money. Unfortunately, this doesn't work. She is captured, but the doctor makes a deal with the Dalek war faction to shut down the renegade faction so they can recapture Susan. Basically, hides her in the TARDIS while he basically gives them what he says to be the device, but it turns out that it's actually just a old sarcophagus. The Daleks, in retaliation, then basically try to exterminate the Doctor, but he uses the time ring to appear in the TARDIS, making them think that the Daleks killed him. And after everything, they go back and drop Susan off back at Gallifrey. Did I miss anything?
I think that's pretty much it.
I
Okay.
think so.
6 minutes, 29 seconds.
Yeah, it was a convoluted plot in places.
Yeah.
Because you have all these multiple factions running around, and it was kind of like, what the hell? All right, so let's talk about what you liked about this episode. Matt.
Oh, I get to speak first. Trying to think here really quick. I'm going to go with I really liked Paul McGann.
Damn you. That was what I was going to say.
He was. I haven't had a chance to really listen to him that often in the audios, and he was very interesting for being the wartime version of himself. A little bit edgy, but at the same time, proving that he does he is trying to commit to what he is trying to do, which is trying to protect people despite the war.
We haven't done that many Paul McGann audios, have we?
We've only done a
Not
few.
many.
Might be something we have to change in the future. Because there's a reason his personality was so well defined in Night of the Doctor, and that was it was based on all of his audios.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He basically evolved into this often sarcastic when dealing with the enemy character, which was I kind of liked. All right, Bill, how about you? What did you like?
So I liked how even though we were returning to a part of the era that we had been in the show literally twice before, as references within this story will point out. Despite that, they were still able to add new like historical backdrop and things to kind of tie it into Doctor Who's roots as something that still shows things about Earth history.
Yeah,
I remember Bill was asking a lot of questions about mods.
Yeah, I was looking them up to do the title card,
Mm.
and I was like, yeah, I was learning a bit there, but I was like, it's funny because I mean, obviously, the first time there was an episode set in 1963, it was not considered a historical, and then the second time, there were a few historical aspects, but they were really focused on the Dalek Civil War and everything else.
And yeah, we
Even
mostly
though
got it
now
from a
they're
military angle,
yeah,
not a
here
cultural one.
right here, even though there's now 3 Dalek factions, we still get to see a little bit more of 1960s culture as well, which is nice.
Yeah, there's still technically only 2 Dalek factions in this because the Imperial Dalek
Yeah,
faction
one
hadn't arrived yet.
right, and I put the wrong one in the title card, but I did not go back and change it.
And technically speaking, I think the War Dalek faction is evolved from the Imperial Dalek faction.
Most likely.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I would think so because they were led by Davros until the first year of the Time War. So by this point, Davros is presumed dead, and they don't find out what happens to him until after the war. But these are the ones that were led by him up until that point.
Yeah, they also at one point were going to bring out the special weapons Daleks, which
Another callback.
Yeah,
which
but
were
it's fun.
our Imperial Daleks.
It's funny that they had no interest in either like going back and exterminating the renegades or killing the Doctor while he was young. They were like, nope. The only thing we care about is the Hand of Omega.
And they didn't even know what it was. At least not yet.
Yeah, I love the fact that they just called it the device the entire time.
Yeah.
We all knew what they were talking about because we all seen the episode.
Right.
but they never referred to it by name. So I was like, really?
Mhm.
You can't call it the Hand of Omega? Why not?
Somebody lost their information somewhere, methinks.
All right. Anyway, I'm gonna have to pass on what I liked
Oh,
because you took mine and I didn't have a secondary.
Okay.
Let's
damn!
talk about.
Imagine if we had a full cast.
Yeah, I know. Let's talk about dislikes. So Matt,
Dislikes. Um, trying to think really quick. Anything I particularly didn't care for? Um, oh, apparently they're adding more powers to the what do they call them again? They don't call the Robomen.
The Robomen that are basically not Robomen by this point, but they
Yeah,
kind
they're
of
like a
are.
complete. Not only are they almost completely different from what we're used to of Robomen, but they suddenly have like
Right.
an ability to spread out if they're in contact with people long enough
Although
and stuff. It's
actually,
really weird.
I think they explain it better here than they did in Remembrance of the Daleks, because I think in Remembrance they just controlled people and that was it. Here they actually explain like the Robotech is in like a chip behind the ear or something.
well, no, you even saw the chip behind the ear in Remembrance of the Daleks.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, because the guy, the caretaker, or the headmaster of the school
Hmm.
that tries to lock the doctor in the basement with the Daleks, Ace knocks him out with a bat,
Right.
and the doctor's trying to take a look and looks behind the ear, and you see the chip behind the ear,
Ah,
and he goes, oh, and then moves on.
gotcha. Well, they do explain the Force lightning in this better than they did in Remembrance, because it just came out of nowhere in Remembrance.
Yeah, well, it was only the little girl that they were using as the um
Mastermind.
yeah, the controller
Hmm.
that could do it. The normal controlled guys didn't. So I don't know if they got a little confused in there or not.
Yeah, that comes out. That also comes off a little awkward. Anyways, I was calling out the Robomen. Bills.
Yes. So what I disliked, um, I'm not sure if I really have a like I have a least favorite scene, but as to a general dislike, I guess if anything, I kind of wish that the rockers bit with the renegades was a little bit more integrated with the rest of the plot. Like if they had been like caused an obstacle at some point just so that it was clear that they were in there and that we were like, oh, they're still out there. But that's I feel like that's kind of a nitpick. That's not like something that majorly affects the story.
All right. I guess to Randy now.
Yeah, so my big issue is an audio adventure where they had mods and they didn't really sound like mods. Mods have a very unique way of talking, and I
Mm,
never really they have their their own little unique slang dictionary, and I never heard any of that used.
shame.
That makes sense, and it makes sense that Alex would be relatively normal because she said like she kind of just hung out with them because she liked the music, but like her boyfriend and
Her
the guy he was
boyfriend used
racing
it a
against.
bit, but yeah, if they
Mm.
were supposed to be really big into the mod culture, they didn't use any of it. So I was a little disappointed in that.
There's excuses you can make for that, but yeah, that'd be us making excuses for them.
Yeah, they mostly just sounded punk, like even how a modern punk would sound when facing the police. So
Right.
I didn't do nothing is pretty much universal street. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that was an intentional decision to not confuse listeners, or if they just didn't bother.
Oh,
Well,
it would only confuse
my
listeners more if they did the
my
research.
yeah, my issue with that is the fact that you can't really see their outfits.
Mm. Yeah.
They just sound
So
like a bunch
all
of
you
Joe
really have
Schmoes.
is their voice. So if you're starting to have them act in a normal voice, they're not really
And especially when half the time both the mods and rockers are talking like this, it
exactly.
it's kind of important that you establish what the differences between them are.
Yeah, because as far as I could tell, there wasn't one, and I know there should be. Just bothered the hell out of me. All right. So favorite scene, Matt.
Oh gosh, favorite scene. Uh, you know what? I was quite bemused by Susan knocking a guy off of a bike with a song, and it's just like, oh, sorry, it's got more kick than I'm used to. It's
All right.
kind of an amusing moment. Just she's just like, no, not both of you are going to get away with this.
All
Trying
right,
to run over
Bill.
little old ladies.
Bill.
So I would say my favorite scene is probably the doctor's introduction. I found that just to be a funny scene. They're just kind of, what are we going to do without the time ring? And it's just the doctor putting on a funny voice and just like, holding that off for like 5 seconds until he walks out the door and they recognize him. And I thought that was a well put together, funny scene.
All right. So my favorite scene is the Eighth Doctor inadvertently channeling the First Doctor at Susan. She's sending the message, and
Yeah.
yes, and he's just like, "Stop
Stop.
dithering and send the message, child."
Yes.
And it's in almost that same exact tone that
Yep.
the First Doctor would use, and it's just like, whoa. And
Once a
her response
grandfather.
was pretty much straight Susan to the
Yeah.
First Doctor too. It's just
Right. She just gets flustered and it takes her back to 16.
Suddenly she's 16 again, and yeah,
Even
he's
though apparently she's a one finger hunt and peck typer.
that part
Apparently,
did
yeah.
bother me a little. I mean, she's in
Yeah.
this war where she's probably using computers all the time,
Right.
and she has to hunt and peck.
Has to hunt and peck on a frickin' keyboard. Are you kidding me?
Then again, she might not be used to English standard keyboards anymore.
She's only been gone from Earth for how long? Since she started this serial?
The duration of the war.
The
And
only thing I could think is if they abandoned QWERTY keyboards in like the 22nd century, but the
no,
doctor
well,
has a QWERTY keyboard.
no, if you think about it, she's been working with Gallifrey. They're probably all their keyboards are in Gallifreyan.
Still, it doesn't
Yeah, but
feel like she's been away that long doing the war.
Well, there's always been little cuts. We don't know how long.
Mm.
The first two episodes were like one following the other. But then there was a gap between that and the third, and another gap between that one and this one. So
My issue with, okay, they couldn't really fix this issue. My issue with that would be if the Time War had really been going on that long, it should not be Paul McGann, but at the same time, they can't, they're not exactly about to recast John Hurt at this stage. So,
also the fact that we don't honestly know how long McGann was dodging the war before he got involved. We know the fact that it had gotten so bad that the universe was already considered to be wrecked to shit by the attitude of the lady that McGann tried to save in Night of the Doctor.
right.
Hearing the name Time Lord, she recoiled in, abject horror and then started lashing out venom about the war. So that must mean at that point that the war had been going on a while and had wrecked quite a lot of shit. So we honestly do not know how long the Time War went on, but we figure it was quite a long time. It's not your average war. It's not, 4 to 5 years and it's over. This thing might have gone on for decades or
Well,
centuries.
just look at it. I mean, like Paul McGann's face never became old, whereas John Hurt went from young John Hurt to old John Hurt.
Well, he was slightly older.
That's kind of the benchmark I use.
He was slightly older.
Well, there's also all that, but there's also the fact that technically the Time War itself has an issue of time as well. It's
Yeah.
literally people slipping back and forth throughout a certain locked area of time now.
Right.
So it's just constantly back and forth and making everything that's locked in it worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, that reminds me of what probably should have been my general dislike. And that's just the idea that crossing your own timeline is a way to avoid the time lock, which seems weird considering, like, if there was ever anything completely forbidden, it was crossing your own timeline.
Yeah, and how
Like, I feel like that would be worse.
And how the Doctor in later regenerations would talk about how trying to get out of the time lock was impossible. Yet here they are sitting right here in 1963.
So the one way to cross the time lock is by doing the completely forbidden. That seems more than a little convenient.
And I quote Mystery Science Theater once again: "Space is warped and time is bendable."
Oh, I gotta say, at this point, London 1963, the time vortex has to be pretty much Swiss cheese, not unlike what they described in Angels Take Manhattan.
Yeah, because the Doctor's punched his way into this particular timeline how many times?
At least 3 times.
At least 3 that we know of, yeah.
And I think a couple more if we add some audios.
6th incarnation. 8th incarnation now.
No. 6th incarnation went to 1985 version of the same location.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, that was much later. Never mind. Wrote that one back.
But we know that 1, 7, and 8 have now all been there.
Mm-hmm. Although 7 was, I think, slightly later.
A couple days.
Yeah, 7
couple
was
days,
there.
couple weeks, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me wonder if, unless the fence was really familiar with Time Lords, how he must feel like. So all 3 of you are the same guy, huh?
Yeah, it just points out though how completely bullshit that excuse was in Angels Take Manhattan.
Right.
As if the rest of the episode wasn't bullshit enough. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of lame excuses in that episode.
There's a lot of pure bullshit in that episode. Statue of Liberty, Angel, 3-hour rant. Look it up.
We're complaining about Angels Take Manhattan. Everybody at home, take a shot.
Matter of fact, we've mentioned it now by name 3 times, 4 times. Take a shot every time we call out Angels Take Manhattan.
God.
Are you trying to get anybody who's listening to die from alcohol poisoning, Matt?
No, I'm just trying to get them to have a nice evening.
That actually listen to our podcast suddenly die of alcohol poisoning.
No, hey, we don't usually mention it that often, and as a matter of fact, we've been avoiding it now for about a minute. We've given them a breather.
So
and
was
if we
that
bring a dirty to the center of the TARDIS, drink straight from the bottle. All right.
Sir, the TARDIS is a gulp.
So
where are we supposed to be?
I believe we were on you for things we.
Oh,
we're on least favorite scenes.
That's right. So I was about to do my least favorite scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this one, and I'm not even still sure, like, if it's what it claims to be. But the scene at the very end where they reveal Alex's name is Audrey, and TARDIS data core is certain that this means it's because it's a reference to this secretly being Ace's mother. And I don't know if there's anything else in this story to give us actual reason to think that, but I don't understand. I don't know any other reason why else they would put that name in there. So I was like, it just seems to be an unnecessary clusterfuck that doesn't add anything to the story.
Yeah, I don't know where they got that from. Other than like, I think one of the other mods shouted Ace at one point, but
No, that
no.
wasn't Ace. It was like it was saying because Ace's mother's name was Audrey, and then they
Well,
reveal at the end
again,
of
that's
that
yeah.
story that Alex's name is really Audrey. Like her first name is Audrey, her middle name is Alex. But as far as I know, that's as far as the connection goes.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
again, I'm not
I
saying
don't
there's
know.
any connection. All I know is that one of the mods shouted Ace at one point, and I don't feel that's a connection. That sounds like it
Mhm.
might have been the one brief moment of mod talk.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about it in the behind the scenes.
Yeah, me either. And I listened to it
Yeah, if
twice.
that was if that was intent, I'm sure that would have been brought up.
So I've been trying to figure out if some editor on TARDIS Data Core got really zealous, or if they know something we
Maybe.
don't.
Well, we know Ace's mother's name is Audrey.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We do know that from Curse of Fenric, which we have not
Yeah.
yet reviewed, but trust me, it's there.
Right.
But
Which is set what, 18 years before this, if I'm not mistaken?
it's set in 1943, so about 20
Oh,
years.
20 years. Okay.
And so that would have made her 20 years old, 19, 20 years old at this point.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing other than this audio that Audrey went by Alex, but yeah, that was just a supposed tie-in with Ace.
Right. So
I-
like,
Someone stretched somewhere, I feel.
yeah. So I was just like, I feel whether that was meaningful unnecessariness or meaningless unnecessariness, either way, it just felt unnecessary.
There's a way they could have made it better too. You know where they could have had Susan show up? Fucking Paraveil.
Ha!
If you met Audrey going by Alex in Paraveil, it would freaking make sense.
Yes, it would.
And that could be that's where they are, because they never actually state where the diner is.
They see the first Doctor, so they should be near Shoreditch.
But at that point they'd made the trip across town to Shoreditch.
They made a trip across to Shoreditch.
Because that's after they were chased by the greasers. So yeah. So that could have been Paraveil, but they never mentioned it was Paraveil.
Yeah, and that would have been a giveaway if they actually would have mentioned anything.
Yeah, if they had said it was Paraveil, ran into Audrey, then you could have been sitting there going, oh, this is Ace's mom.
Right.
But they never actually made that.
Even a passing note from the Doctor going, you seem familiar to me. I'm not sure why, and then just going on normally again.
Whereas instead, the Doctor doesn't even let Susan finish saying her real name.
Yeah, it's one of those things that they could have tied it better, but they didn't. They kind of left it. They kind of half-assed it.
Yeah.
All right. I guess
so.
you're ready.
I think my least favorite scene is Susan trying to convince him that she's a temporal con artist, because she's not really that convincing.
Not particularly.
Yeah, she was so much better going undercover in The Uncertain Shore.
It's just kind of one of those things that it's just like, no, not buying it.
Nope. He bought you as a painter, not as a con artist. You, quite frankly, my dear, your eyebrows arch too friendly. And there's a couple other things that Crow pointed out to Joel that made him not evil.
All right. So, final thoughts, Matt.
Final thoughts. Again, this is one I really liked. There was uh, some minor things here and there, but there's a lot of things I liked. It was nice to have Paul again. I definitely feel like I have not listened to enough Paul McGann yet. Um, the dogs were really well done. We had two different eras essentially of them. Instead of just two different groups, we had literally ones from the future.
Oh, by the way, what did you think of the cameo by
Oh yeah. I can't think of his name now. Yeah, the new First Doctor,
yeah,
David Bradley.
David Bradley. Yeah, you heard him? I'm like, oh, it's him, isn't it? Yep, that's him. All right.
I realized I asked in the chat if anybody could point me in the direction of it, and then I found it myself. And I realized afterward that cameo is played at a softer volume than everything else, and I usually listen to audios while I'm walking to and from work. So probably there was either enough background noise or it was a moment where I had to step down from a step or something that I kept missing it.
I heard it perfectly fine the first time. I don't know. I listened to
yeah,
it while I'm playing
yeah,
Minecraft this time.
yeah. That's exactly what I did. I was playing Minecraft and I was listening to it. I'm like, oh shit, that's David Bradley.
Indoors. Yeah.
Well, we're indoors, but we're also playing a game where you constantly hear doop, 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 boom, and
Yeah, and
also
I'm
hear
technically
growls.
my character was in the middle of a thunderstorm, so it was like I couldn't hear it when she said her name was Alex because a freaking lightning bolt had hit in the game.
Ah,
And then literally 3 minutes later, we got the David Bradley cameo, and I'm like, oh, dude, that's David Bradley. It was faint, I'll give you that, but it was still recognizable for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot louder than they did it in the behind the scenes. Okay, so let's go back to final thoughts.
Yeah, that was also nice for the Bradley cameo. That I can't say there's much holding me back from really liking this one. Yeah, there's a few things that could have been tweaked and made it a lot better, but they're tweaks, not like something that's game breaking to the episode to me.
All right, anything else?
That's about it for me.
All right. Bill?
Okay. So yeah, I like this story. It definitely makes sense why they saved it as kind of like the high point of the box set. Especially since it's a little removed from the box set and not having Veclin, which kind of makes it like it could be set at any point in time for that reason. But it kind of ties a neat knot on these stories set in this time period before. It kind of interweaves between what we know about the first Doctor's activities and what we know about the seventh Doctor's activities without really sticking its finger into either of them and really mixing things up. So that was nice. I thought the character of Alex was a good foil for Susan. She didn't really do all that much, but she just kind of kept the story it kept it functional, kind of like I was talking about did not happen with Planet Hulk. Like there's just someone for Susan to work off of, and to ask those questions that needed to be asked, things like that.
A decent temporary companion.
Yeah. Yeah, and they had good chemistry, I think. Um, and I enjoyed seeing the bit about the mods and the rockers, and that convinced me to go and do a little bit of reading um, about what the situation was at that time. So yeah, I would definitely say it was a pretty solid story overall, very enjoyable.
All right. Matt? Oh, wait, no, you went first. Okay,
I
me.
went first. You, Randy.
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm used to there being more than two people I have to
Right.
I accuse you. You go next.
All right, so I thought it was pretty good. There was a couple of holes in the episode, but that's always the case when you go and try to put a new tread on some old ground. I mean, God knows, freaking Enterprise pretty much just ripped holes in Star Trek history. And it does show here, but at the same time, it's very good to see some of the interactions going on. and I quite enjoyed a lot of it. So, I think it's pretty good. All right, ratings, Matt.
Oh gosh. I have to say this is, I think, the best story in the box. I'm gonna say it's fine tweaked to high enough now. It's a 5. I really like this one.
Bill.
Whew, so my choices are between the extreme of a 5 or the other extreme of already dragging it down. I think I'll go with a 4.5 though.
5. All right. And I'm going to give it a 4.5 as well.
I've been the high one in this entire box that
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel.
Yeah, you have been mostly. You've.
Yeah,
the
you
only-
seem
the
to really
only-
like this
the
box set. Yeah.
Apparently.
The only one where you weren't the highest was the Uncertain Shore, where Bill gave it a 5 and you gave it a 4.5. So, other than that, you've been the high one in every one, either tied or just straight out high. Anyway, that averages out to a 4.7.
All right.
That is pretty high on the list. That's going to put it at number 30. It is on par with Big Finish Class in Remembrance, which is, I believe, the one with Ace.
Mm-hmm.
It is better than... Oh, wow. There is absolutely nothing in Big Finish below it until 4.5, which is the Thousand Worlds, the Heart of Battle.
Makes sense. It's a smaller sample size overall.
And is not as good as... Shit. That is now that is now tied for the top of the list for Big Finish audios.
Oh. Had to see what Tim's thoughts are on it next week.
Yep.
It might be the tiebreaker.
Yeah. So there we go. At this point, number
Bill,
30.
you're dying over there. I heard a noise and a loud thud on your end.
Oh, I'm not sure what that was then.
That's 30 out of 350 things reviewed.
All right. Oh. I think Discord's ticking. Just a moment.
That's what you think, or otherwise, just generally your thoughts on, from hearing what we had to say about it. Otherwise, don't forget to like the video if you feel that way, or dislike if you want to. Subscribe to keep getting our YouTube exports, or follow to keep seeing our new streams on Twitch.
All right, so next week it's back to normal, as we are going to try to knock another doctor out of a park. This time it is the second doctor we are going to try to finish up. We are starting with...
Sounds like we're beating an old man.
This time, it's The Dominators, written by Norman Ashby, and starring Patrick Troughton as the Doctor, Fraser Hines as Jamie, and Wendy Padbury as Zoe. See you next week.
See you then.
Also, give us a thumbs up if you want me to punch Discord and the jewels, because I'm really sick and tired of it flaking out like it does. Good night.